Life isn't perfect, and neither are we.
Nope. But we know how to face our fears
And have some fun.
and talk about all the messiest things of life.
Like the messiest things.
Get connected to yourself, get connected to others, and get connected to the life right in front of you.
This is The Connected Life with Justin and Abby.
That's me.
That's you.
And you.
You're an idiot, and this is the reason that my life is absolutely miserable. No, why are you laughing at this? I have problems in my life because of you.
Yeah, I know. We blamed each other so much for
We did,
everything.
and we name called.
Oh, yeah. And I projected that you were my parents, and you projected that I was your parents.
Yeah.
And we did not know how to resolve the differences. Anyway, we spent years having to work through conflict, bumping into each other, and we did it very poorly for a long time.
We did.
And through the journey of emotional health and having to figure it out, and lots of counselors and resources, we now have so much more peace in our conflicts. We're not perfect, but we have a lot more peace. And conflict now builds connection between us instead of creating walls. And I have seen our marriage, all of our marriage, the quality of it has grown the better we've gotten at conflict.
Yep.
I feel closer to you in every area because I feel safer with you.
Yeah. And to me, one of the staples for creating a connected marriage and a connected life is being able to do conflict really well in any area, whether it's with our friends, our coworkers, our bosses, our employees. Like, conflict is so staple in being able to get healthy resolution and actually build a deeper sense of connection.
Once a year, we do our Life Consulting Masterclass. It's a year-long program, and we have lots of conferences throughout that year that we do. One of them is our conflict mini conference. It's 3 sessions. It's May 10th and 11th, and we're inviting you to come for free to be a part of this conference for free. All you have to do is sign up. You get the Zoom link, and then you get to join us. You get to see what it's like being in the environment, but you also get to get some tools, some emotional health language, philosophies, and you can just send it to all of the people that you want them to be more safe for you. You're like, I want you to listen better.
I need them to learn how to do conflict. I'm bringing you into this.
Yeah.
So if you want to get the link to that and send it out, it's justinandabby.com/conflict. And you can just go there and type in your name in the field, and it'll send you a Zoom link for May 10th and 11th. So we look forward to having you guys join us. And here's the rest of the episode.
Yay!
I don't think that there's one podcast that we're ever going to get through where we don't restart it at this point.
Well, we used to do it sometimes.
Yeah, I think something changed once we got to video.
No, I know. I don't know what it was. We haven't found our new groove yet. Maybe.
I know. It is a weird thing trying to get a new groove being on video. I don't know, just because the cameras are there and it's no longer you in a bathrobe with your hair over here wearing no makeup. And
honestly, that's very real. Most of our podcasts were me barely functioning. Yeah.
Things have changed.
I actually have to shower now.
Do you have to shower?
Yeah,
You mean to do your hair?
Yep.
It's good. It's accountability. Hygiene.
Well, we have a podcast, so Abby does get dressed now. There is a reason she has to.
Yeah, it's fun. I think I made mention, what?
One of my favorite reasons for working, I worked at a job where I went into an office for a few years every day, not our office. Is because I actually had to get dressed every day.
Oh, yeah.
I did my hair and makeup way more.
There was a life requirement.
I had to go somewhere.
Does that mean I need to make you go to the office every day?
It doesn't matter. Because
it's our business, and you're like, I don't even care.
Yeah, I'll come to our office.
I haven't brushed my teeth in 4 weeks.
I'll come to our office in my bathrobe. I've done that before.
You're not wrong.
I know.
It is really funny. It's an interesting thing. It's definitely like 8-year-old Abby manifesting. I don't want to go to school, Mom.
I have like 2 very different versions of myself. There's like one that is like, I'm in my bathrobe all day and have not taken a shower in a week. And I look a little bit homely.
Yeah, it's okay. I still love you.
And then I have another version where I look good.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah. Where I can like
It's kind of like Batman and
like,
Bruce Wayne, but only if
Superman
Bruce Wayne,
and Clark Kent.
yeah,
Yeah.
only much more difficult circumstances.
Only you're saying Clark Kent did not look as good as, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know what? I'm really excited about today. We're gonna veer off of your presentation, your life presentation, and get into relationship conversations.
My life presentation. I was like, what is he saying?
Well, yeah.
Okay, we're gonna veer off how I present myself,
Mm-hmm.
and we're gonna talk about a real subject.
Yeah, real subject.
Yeah.
I want to get into the topic of relationships and navigating relational losses.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we've all had relational losses, and some of those we've provoked.
Sometimes we threw the grenade at somebody.
Threw big grenades, fired off bazookas into people's faces.
We betrayed people.
We left
broke
people
trust,
in a lot of pain.
We hurt people.
And we created scenarios where people were left in a lot of powerless experiences and pain that they had to process. And then on the flip side, we were the one that felt like a train wreck was hitting our life, and we were a bystander on the side.
Yep.
And that's so relatable.
And then wait, there's another one. There's the one of just like things naturally drifting and ending. Or there's another one. There's one where things just end and you have no idea why.
Yeah, you're very confused.
I heard the best story yesterday.
You did?
Yes, my friend was telling me it.
This
and
better be really good.
They were all college friends. They all hung out every day and like knew each other. It was great. One day, one of them leaves, disappears, deletes all Facebook, MySpace, everything.
What?
And no one ever hears from him again.
What?
Wait. So then, like this year, so it's been like probably 15 years since then.
Did he show up as she?
No, that would have made more sense. No, this year, one of the college friends was in a random city, not the one they went to college in, like a different state, and is at a restaurant and sees the guy.
Okay.
Makes eye contact with them. The guy looks at him and literally takes off, runs out of the room, and runs away before the guy can catch him. And so they literally still...
This is the greatest Irish goodbye of all time. Yes. The whole story.
100%. So no one to this day knows why he left.
He's deeply
and
avoidant.
Where he went and what happened. But so that's what I'm saying. There's
Was he part of a CIA program?
We don't know. We have no idea. They still, I listened to that story. I was like, we have to hire a private investigator.
I don't even know this people group. I don't even know this person, but I want to know now.
I know. I was thinking, my friend was like, maybe we should start a GoFundMe for a private investigator. And everybody who pitches in gets to find out what the answer is.
I don't know why, but that guy's kind of my hero because my historical avoidance is that's awesome. I would have loved to have done that. I kind of did that with my high school a little bit. I totally blocked everyone for an entire season and no one knew what happened to me.
He deleted everything. So it's not that he deleted
There's no trace of his life.
There's no trace of his life. There's absolutely none. He
scrubbed the internet.
Yes. Now, for your sake, you did you unblocked people.
I did. I unblocked people. I went through a whole reconcile situation with my own soul.
Yeah.
I definitely was one of those people that cut people out in certain seasons.
Yes.
I was done. I'm past the amount of pain that I have. I can't do it anymore. Middle fingers to everybody. I'm out.
So you've been the perpetrator of ending a relationship.
Absolutely.
And then you've also been the person that it's happened to.
Yes. And I think that that's something as we get into this conversation, and we'll get deeper into deeper into heroes versus villains. We'll touch on that, but there really isn't. There's just humans.
Yeah.
It isn't those people that do those things. I'm we're all capable of it, and we've all hurt people. And I think that is the way that I want to approach this conversation, because it actually should be a compassionate one. On both sides.
Yeah. The goal is that we can have compassion on our story, on the loss that we went through, whatever the reason. Maybe you grew apart, or maybe they betrayed you behind your back, or maybe they ended connection and didn't explain why, or maybe you got in a fight and it blew up. There's so many different reasons things end. But the concept is, how do we process relationships ending without that creating more damage for ourselves?
Yeah.
And how do we heal through the process? Because loss hurts.
Yeah.
And for us, we need to be able to hold two things at once. And this is very hard for humans. We need to be able to hold my pain and grief over this really matters.
Yeah.
And be able to hold compassion for the other people involved.
Yeah. That they're human.
That they're human.
Yeah.
That they're still human. One of the things, it's very easy when someone rejects you, we naturally want to reject them back.
Yeah.
We want to villainize them. If somebody like takes off and isn't friends with me, then I want to point out everything that's wrong with them so I can explain why it doesn't matter that they rejected me.
Or I want to go inward and pummel myself and beat up on me and go like, I'm a horrible person. What's wrong with me? I feel so much shame. I must be broken if someone leaves me inside of this. So we're oftentimes assigning worth or value to one of the individuals inside of the conversation.
Yeah. Well, when pain happens, we all want to blame. So we
Yes,
either
absolutely.
blame outside of us or we blame inside of us. But when a betrayal happens, it has to be one of our faults because we think that the way to process through pain is if it's your fault, then I can push you away from me so I can push the pain away from me.
Yeah.
Or if it's my fault, I can try to fix me so that I can push the pain away from me.
Right. Instead of just embracing, this situation has pain in it, period. Doesn't matter who's at fault. There's pain to be grieved. There's lessons to be learned. There's forgiveness to be had inside of it.
Yeah.
Like doing the actual work that is empowering, that is restorative and is redemptive.
Yeah. I want to start with an analogy, if I can, that Tyler Perry did probably like 15 years ago.
Okay.
And it stuck with me because it was just so poignant. He was talking about how relationships are like a tree and some relationships are like the leaves. They're here for a season and then they're gone. Some relationships are more like branches. They're here for a longer season, but they can break off and it's not devastating to the tree if it loses a branch.
Right.
And then some relationships are like the trunk and some relationships are like the roots. The roots are like, they're your lifers. They're your forever people. They're the people that hold you up, that keep you rooted to the ground, that keep you feeling secure and safe. And he said, the problem for us is when we think that a leaf or a branch is a root.
Yeah.
So like it hurts so bad if we think they're a root and then they leave. If we think they're our forever people and then they leave. And so part of it was that acceptance of sometimes we need to let go. Like I have a friendship. I'm going to talk about two different situations in my life. And then you can talk about yours. I have two different friendships that ended that I'm going to bring up. What if I called them out by name? Wouldn't that be funny?
And then we dox them and share their information on the internet.
Yeah. We say all the bad things they did.
Boo.
Boo. Yeah. So I had one relationship. I was very close with this person. She dramatically impacted my life. And then it ended on her terms. She ended.
Dramatically impacted your life in a positive manner?
Yeah. She was like one of the people that I'd felt the most loved by and the most seen and believed in and protected. And she was really a part of one of the most significant seasons in my life, like my coming alive and my coming of age and my finding my sense of self. So it was like a really beautiful relationship. And I thought she was a forever person. Honestly, back then, though, I was in my early 20s. I thought everyone was a forever relationship.
That's very real for most people in their youth.
Yeah. Like I just assumed
this is going to happen forever.
You'll be my best friend forever. I can't imagine my life without you. You are now one of the most important people to me. There's no way that something would change that. And then as you know, there was several big things that happened that ended up starting to change the dynamics. And I will say one of the dynamics at play is every best friend she had cut out.
Right.
That is a dynamic.
So what you're saying is that there was a cyclical behavior.
Yeah, there was a cyclical behavior of that. Now, There's this quote I heard the other day that was like, some people see red flags as an opportunity to be special.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a good one.
I was like, that is my life. I see red flags and I'm like, ooh, I will be the one person you've never done the behavior you always do to. I will be the one person you don't betray when you betray others. I'll be the one person that you share your feelings with when you never share your feelings. I'll be the one person that you are faithful to.
What a game some of us love to play.
I know. I really have. And so even though I had seen that she had cut out multiple friends, I didn't feel like that would ever happen to me because I am special. I'm so special, and I was going to love her in a way that she could feel safer than she'd ever felt before.
She's going to choose you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I thought. We're all playing those games with our parents. We're like, I can though.
Mommy, Daddy, choose me. I can win.
So that is one relationship that ended. And then I had another relationship that ended in another traumatic. Both of them were pretty painful when they ended. And the other one happened right after my dad called me and told me, you got to come say goodbye to your mom. She'd been in the hospital multiple times. She was not doing good. And I went home and I ended up finding her passed out in a pile of trash. And she'd overdosed on drugs. And then it was a chaotic time for us. But literally my best friend through that process, right after that, we got into a confrontation because there wasn't any compassion for what had happened with my mom. And I didn't understand that. And then I have my confusion trigger that gets kind of aggressive. When I can't understand things, it comes off very aggressive. And so I couldn't understand why there wasn't compassion for what I had just gone through. And she felt overwhelmed by me being confused. And that one conversation ended our friendship. And I never thought that would happen. Yeah. And so both, I want to bring them up to compare and contrast, and then I'll have you share about your own life a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
But one of them, as time went on, it was so painful when it happened because what I used to do is assign meaning to loss, which means, oh, this means I can never trust anyone. Oh, this means no one will be faithful. Oh, this means I'll always be abandoned. Oh, this means I'm not enough to fight for. Oh, this means that I'm too broken to have secure relationships. Oh, this means that my picker is wrong. Like I always pick the wrong people. Like there's so much meaning that we're assigning. And that was actually the pain that really, really hurt me.
Yeah.
Was the meaning that I assigned. So I was able to, as time went on, look at this relationship that happened. And now I can look back and I just feel, because I grieved it and I was able to move through it, now I just feel thankful for what it was and that I had it in my life. But the conclusion I had to come to was that me and her had incompatible triggers.
It's a great way to put it.
It wasn't that she was so bad. Like she did have attachment pain and her attachment pain led to her wanting to pull away. And my attachment pain led to me putting walls up. And so we ping-ponged against each other as our attachment, because we didn't have the skills to communicate through our triggers. Right. Her triggers and my triggers, like she triggered me, I triggered her, she triggered me, I triggered her. Sometimes we get in trigger dances with relationships. Yes. And I don't think she's bad. Like now looking back, I don't think she's a villain. I think that there's a lot of attachment pain she had from her past. I'm sure there's things I did that reminded her of attachment pain. There's things that she did that reminded me of attachment pain. And so I look back and I think we did the best that we could. And I'm glad that it ended. That felt right for our lives. Right. I feel like, and now like seeing where our lives have gone, the pathways our lives have gone, I feel like, oh, I'm thankful for the path that I'm on. And this feels like the right path for me. And I'm sure she feels the same for her. Yeah. Like that she's thankful for that. But I look back and I feel so much gratitude for the relationship I had, for the season I had it. Yeah. because I'm no longer, I see that she was like a branch. She wasn't a leaf, but she wasn't a root. She was a branch, and she was a really important branch for a really important season. And all I feel is grateful because I've taken my identity out of it and her identity out. It doesn't mean I'm unlovable, and it doesn't mean she's unlovable. It doesn't mean I'm bad. It doesn't mean she's bad. It literally is just the idea that we were not compatible in a season. In one season, we were very compatible.
Yes.
And in another season, our triggers were not.
Yeah.
Our self-protection was not compatible.
It's good. I have a few thoughts, but
I want to compare that to the other one, but I wanted to like take a break and let you join in. And I was monologuing.
Yeah. Do you want to continue to monologue?
No.
No?
No.
I mean, because I was going to say a side note on.
Yeah, please.
I really view us as sojourners.
Oh.
We're all sojourning.
Sojourning.
But it's like people are passing by, and it's like there's a moment of the passing by of where there's goods exchanged. Like, right? Like that might be intimate moments, that might be love, that might be
Life
lessons.
truths. Yeah.
But it's like we're all on this pathway of life, and I'm like, oh, hi, how you doing? Oh, here's an exchange. Okay, bye, nice meeting you. But there's this idea for me that when I look through an eternal perspective, that I am collecting moments that I get to reflect on in eternity with people, and I get to celebrate. And so when I view seasons like that, I'm like, yes, if we view it through the lens of like, this is horrible, this is supposed to be long-term, we can lose the beauty of like, oh no, I don't have room for 10,000 people all at once.
Yeah.
So the beauty is that as sojourners, when we stop and we have an exchange, we get to embrace that exchange, and then we get to celebrate that exchange at a time that we have yet to conceive of. So
you're saying like in eternity, I will probably get to enjoy the friendship I had with this person.
Yes.
And be like, wow, I'm so thankful for what you did in my pathway.
I can try to hold on to like one or two individuals my entire life, and I have those two individuals left to celebrate with. Or I can be like, I had 150, 200 individuals that we crossed each other's paths, and we left like these special gifts in each other's lives. And now we get to celebrate our experience on earth together, and we get to like reflect on it and examine how that impacted us and other, like there can be something really beautiful. So to me, when I see the idea of the sojourner concept, I'm like collecting like nuggets of gold in eternity. Yeah. So it lowers the stakes for me.
Oh, 100%.
It's changed the way that I see everything altogether. And though I have grief as there's a passing by, though I have that grief as there's passing by, I'm still like, oh, but there's going to be a beautiful conversation one day. And I also have this
part of you that believes in eternal redemption.
Eternal redemption is so encoded inside of me that it's rewritten the way that I see these exchanges, and what feels like a loss isn't a permanent loss because there's a revisiting of this relationship at some point in my perspective.
Imagining I'm going to get to the place where I'm so loved in eternity. And other people are connecting to their most loved, authentic self. And then we will be able to actually celebrate what was good between us.
Yes, absolutely. So it allows me to be more present with this current circumstance, even though there is levels of grief. And I also have this mystery box inside of me where I'm like, oh, this person was here in this season and it was wonderful. And then it was disastrous and we separated. But what is the redemptive beauty that possibly happens here on earth where I also get to have potentially encounters because we haven't played out the entire story.
Totally.
Oftentimes we quickly try to play out the entire story. Like, this is the beginning and end of this relationship. It was so shitty and terrible and I had pain and it's done and it's over, instead of being like, ooh, but what's the mystery box of how this might revisit? Because I've had relationships that were very painful in high school that now have been revisited in my adult life that have brought incredible amounts of redemption. And I'm like, if I had held that relationship in purgatory, like put it in prison and been like, I'll never revisit that, and that was just painful, then I would have missed out on the opportunity of the expansion of their life, the growth and the development of their life, the development and growth of mine, recolliding together to display a story of beauty. So that's just a side note, like when you're talking about that.
I love
how I do that.
But the only reason you've done that is because you actually can grieve enough, because one of the things you're talking about is the let go. You're surrendering.
Yes.
You can get to acceptance about a relationship, because if you are still holding on to how angry you are or how hurt you are, you can't hope for a future. And that, I mean, in that relationship that I was talking about, it took me years for me to get to the let go. Because it was such a primary attachment for me. When it ended painfully, it really did affect me in a lot of ways. And so I think now it feels very easy to be like, oh, I think in the future we could have some kind of redemptive conversation. But also that's because I'm not in the hole anymore.
Right.
I'm not in the pain anymore.
In the chasm of pain.
Yeah. And that's why I actually brought up my other story about the traumatic ending of a friend right after my mom almost died, because there was so many different pieces to that friendship loss. There was my mom almost dying. There was all the pain with that. Then there was the pain of loss with that relationship. Then there was the pain of the betrayals that happened from her after that. And the concept for me, that took me way longer to process and get to acceptance, because there was so much pain. And one of the things that was really hard for me is how invalidated and unseen I felt. Like I had wanted, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because I think it's relatable. Oftentimes when we feel unseen, like how could they, like the question I had was, how could she not understand that it was traumatizing for me to save my mom's life, and that I've had to do that multiple times before in my history. How could a close friend of mine not just have some compassion towards me in that? And I got looped on that over and over. And so the reason I couldn't get to the let go place, the reason that relationship took longer, is because I needed to validate my own pain.
Right.
I needed to say, but I see you and I understand why that cost you so much. And I see, but the grief, you have to grieve it to get to acceptance.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. You're talking about the grief to get to acceptance and stuff. One of the things that I've been pretty deliberate on in my life is revisiting pain, because we want to bury it, but then we can't reconcile it.
Yes.
Pain that's been buried can't be reconciled.
Such a good line.
And so to me, I look at it and go, I'm going to go back and I'm going to visit all these pockets of pain that I don't want to look at. And I'm going to view it through the lens of validating my experience, seeing the whole story, seeing their humanity inside of it, finding compassion for them, forgiveness for them, forgiveness for myself inside of it, right? But once I clear the clutter that causes me to keep the pain buried and get rid of it, all of a sudden I have the capacity to absorb the love that they had the capacity to present to me.
Totally.
So we're talking about those gifts that people are depositing in our lives as they pass through it. But when there's pain, oftentimes
the pain blocks our ability to enjoy any of the gift they were
to
us.
Imagine this: someone's in your life, and I had someone in my life for like 2 years, back in my early 20s, that there was immense fun that happened between us. There was coming of age stories that were happening in that time. There was just such a brotherly bond that happened. And then they did something that was devastating, a devastating betrayal.
Yeah.
They weaponized parts of my vulnerable pieces of my life in order to manipulate a situation for their benefit.
Yeah. And
And it left me devastated, right? And so I used to have what I called the dead zone. So you F me over far enough and you get put in the dead zone. That means you're dead, you're buried. That relationship never existed. You never existed to me. If I see you in public, in person, you do not exist. That's the dead zone. And there was a journey when I was going, and I went to go speak on what's that island that we had our wedding? Catalina. I went to Catalina Island to speak with Paul Young to a group of men. And on my journey there, I really started looking at like, I have this dead zone and there's these buried bodies in this dead zone. This was years ago. And I decided to start clearing the graveyard, digging up the dead bodies and being like, I see you, I see your humanity. I started going through a handful of people. And when I did that, reflecting on this individual, okay, this individual was one of them, I all of a sudden was able, because let me back up. That 2 years, all the love and the joy of it that I had experienced
got sucked away by how it ended.
And so I had this piece of my soul that said,
every time you thought of him, you only thought of the end.
Only thought of the end, and that season of life didn't hold love, right? Like, oh, I never felt loved in that season. Well, that's a load of shit. I did feel loved. There was plenty of ways I felt loved. I had an intimate connection, a healthy masculine relationship where we were able to exchange vulnerable parts of our stories and share in pain, suffering, and celebratory experiences that suddenly got erased, right?
Right.
But now all of a sudden I could recollect that love. And there were dozens of those where as I started revisiting these stories, I'm like, oh no, my whole life was filled with love. It was also filled with pain.
Yes.
Where there was loss. But what ended up happening is me revisiting those moments, reconnecting to the love of those seasons, started creating a new reality inside of me that like, oh no, I've never been alone. I've always had love available. There's an abundance of love inside of my life. And it rebuilt a sense of confidence, a sense of hope. It eradicated pieces of depression. It started tearing down walls of self-protection that I had for future relationships that were robbing me from the love that was currently happening.
Yeah.
Changed the whole game. And so for me, that's one thing I call mining for love.
Yes.
Is when we go back to these relational experiences that had pain points inside of them, seasons of pain, and where we look at it and go, but where was the beauty at inside of that? If I can forgive this and humanize the circumstance we were in, I can re-grab hold of this love and it changes the game for me.
Well, and I want to be clear because you're not talking about living in denial of the pain either. What
No,
you're
not at
talking
all.
about
Embrace
is
the reality.
trying to hold the two things together. Typically as humans, we're black or white. So it's like either I remember how great you were as a friend or how traumatic it was as a friend. And if you remember only the trauma, all of the love gets stolen. And so you're saying, how can I bring and hold both? How can I hold that we had great times that we're really filling, which actually tells your brain, like in every season, I have people who love me.
Yes.
In every season, there are waves of people who love, which starts to tell you, like, even if seasons changing, like even if there's a friendship now that we have that transitions, there'll be new friendships that we start. And because that's what relationships are, that there is the ability to know that there is love that continues.
And even, as I've grown from that point and I have current losses in the middle, the way that I process current losses is much different. So as I'm in the middle of the pain process of losing someone in my life, I'm also embracing like, what are the ways that they really added to my story? And I'm sitting with that. I'm like, I tell myself, I'm not going to let them go. I actually reflect on, here are the ways that you've been a gift to my life. Thank you so much for the love that you had the capacity to reflect. And I say reflect because there's this idea that like love in and of itself is something that we're reflecting from something much bigger than us.
Like from the nature of God.
From the nature of God. And there's this sense of like, sometimes I don't have a greater capacity to reflect more love than this, but here's the love that I do have the capacity. And when I see that, I see it as a capacity thing. I go, oh, you're not bad. This is the capacity of love that you're able to reflect now where you're at in the midst of your story. And I'm going to embrace those nuggets that you were reflecting and take them as valuable and true and real.
The reason that we can do this is because that doesn't mean that we don't believe in boundaries. Like obviously we're talking about friendships that are ending, but I want to be clear because it's so easy for us to like, okay, I just want to receive the love this person does have to give, but they're also hurting me in all these other ways.
Absolutely.
And we believe in boundaries. We believe in having good conversations about good boundaries. So this is not a conversation about that. This is, how do you grieve well after a relationship has ended? And I think it's so important to remember this is a human experience. I think everyone, but I don't want to say with certainty language, but almost everyone experiences betrayal and loss as a human.
I don't know that there would be one person that hasn't at some point. Yeah.
And Jesus did.
Yeah.
Jesus was betrayed. And I think he was probably better at certain things than I am in life. You know, like he had a much more secure attachment style than I did. And he was still betrayed, and somebody still left him and ended a relationship with him.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that that is not a statement of our worth or our value.
Yes.
It is a statement of, this is the end of our season together, at least for now.
You know, you're talking about the boundary thing. Like I had a friend who did something incredibly violating in my world years ago, and destructive, violating, had to be held accountable for all of it. And the fallout, it took us 2 years before we could reconcile that, as I was holding them accountable to having to go to
have boundaries.
Boundaries. And look honestly at how they got to the destructive decision that they did inside of it. And I didn't know if that was ever going to get repaired. And along the way, I had to go into a process of forgiveness and strong boundary setting. We ended up rekindling connection. We ended up having apology conversations and stuff. And then the relationship took off again at a different place, an entirely different level.
Like it wasn't best friends.
It wasn't best friends.
But it was like, we have a shared history and we understand each other.
Yep. And there's a lot that we went through. And then it ended up turning around to a place where they had another meltdown in their own world and didn't know what to do with that, and went into blame and accusation towards me. And the point is that on the back end of that, I felt so much peace as it was happening. I had such ease of being like, oh, that's okay. This is just where you're at. This is your pain again that you don't know how to deal with. And I don't have to vilify you in this. And I'm very thankful for the way that we were able to rekindle, reconnect some of the things that we walked through. And I'm very okay with this relationship fully parting ways now.
Yeah.
And in that boundary sense, I was like, I even walked away from that being like, let me hold you accountable to like some truth on the way out of this. Not reactionary stuff. I was able to not be reactionary. I was able to sit and just be like, hey, here's some hard truth you might have to swallow in this.
Yeah.
And I love you. And it's beautiful. Like, I think that as we get established inside of our own personal identity, like when we can get into this, like I was able to get in this sense of, I have my own personal self-worth. This isn't a question of whether or not I'm good or bad. This isn't a question of whether or not they're good or bad.
Yeah.
This is a matter of fact situation, and I can peacefully walk away from this and celebrate what is.
Yeah, I think it's so important to like, our job is to process as best as we can.
Yeah.
And for me, I think it's okay to villainize somebody for a quick second in the beginning.
Yeah. I mean, we can have those. That's human.
We have those moments where it's like, they're the worst. What's wrong with them? It's all their fault.
Yeah.
And then I normally am like, pull it back to like, where's my vulnerable pain?
Yeah.
Where's my, like, because when we're blaming others, even if what they did is clearly wrong, there's a lot of situations. I mean, we've had a couple betrayals that what they did was so clearly the infraction. Just a
violation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of all kinds of morals and principles.
Yeah. And so I think like there's the ability to be frustrated and sad, but even in those, I think what we've done is we've tried to be like, okay, there's a human in there that is in a lot of pain and they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. I often think of us like toddlers. Like toddlers, when they feel a lot of pain, they just kind of outburst.
Yep.
They just like, they implode. They either scream or they cry or they yell, and it's about chicken nuggets. You know, it's you put the chicken nuggets on the wrong color plate. And they wanted green and you gave them a blue plate. Yeah, and they just can't handle it. And they just have a complete meltdown over something that we think that's not meltdown worthy. And I think a lot of us adults, we have so much pain that we have moments when our pain implodes with other people. Yes. And there's moments where just something about the interaction can remind us of our deepest pain and we can react towards them.
Transcends our capacity for logic and truth of the circumstance in front of us.
And so I just think it's important that as we process, now, it is so sad to lose someone you thought would be a forever person.
Yes, it is.
It's devastating, especially, like for me, the relationship I was talking, this took me so much longer, the one that I'm talking about after my mom died. It took me so much longer to process that. And part of that was because at that point, she represented family to me.
Yeah.
The friendship had gone on so long and we'd done so many life events, holidays, vacations, that she felt like family to me. So when that ended, it felt like family can end.
Yes.
And what happens is when we have, and I've had, because I've, been a life consultant, we've met with thousands of people.
Yeah.
I have had so many stories, and I just want to validate out there, losing one of your main people can sideswipe you for a couple of years.
Yes.
It just happens.
Yeah. It can take a few years
to recover and to process and to grieve. And I just want you to know, if that's you, that you can come back from that if you want. You can grieve it, and you can find new people to create friendships with, and you can find new ways to feel safe in relationships. I genuinely have had a lot of betrayal in my life, and I feel safer now in relationships than I ever have.
Yes.
And I don't feel safe because I think no one will ever hurt me. I think I feel safe because I've accepted that friendships come and go, and that the friends I have now are really rich for right now.
Yeah.
And I'm just so thankful that for right now, I'm receiving love.
Yeah.
I've quit trying to make sure that my whole future is guaranteed. And I've realized that in every season of my life, there's been people who've loved me.
Yeah. I want to.
Which means if some of my people change, then there'll be new people who come to love me. Yeah. And sometimes that's like right now, one of my closest friends just moved and I never see her anymore. And that's really sad. And it doesn't mean that there's like bad terms, but it still dramatically impacts my life.
Yeah.
To have one of my main people not there all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so it's important that we give ourselves permission to be sad, give ourselves permission to feel, and then engage the life in front of us.
One of the things that I, want to add is like, some relationships end because of transitions, just life transitions. There isn't anything
like
nefarious.
You're in college, and then you in college, or one person moves,
gets married, moves to the
somebody
other
has
side
kids,
of the
somebody gets
world.
married. Yes.
And it just is. Distance naturally happens, and there's not something that's like, oh, we had relational problems. It just is. It's life, right? Then we're talking about aspects of potential relational problems that it's much more messy. It creates a type of grief that's a little bit different to navigate. I think one of the things that's very empowering is to look in these situations and ask the question without blame, what is the role that I played? When messiness happens, when disconnects happens, for me, that's been one of the most empowering things.
Yes.
I know that
but you again are holding that in balance, not I caused. And I remember when I had a conversation with one of my friends that we'd gone through this, my counselor was like, you cannot fall on your sword and say that it was all your fault.
Yes.
So when you're apologizing for what you did, she was like, make sure you say things like, I know we co-created some cycles together.
Yes.
My part of that cycle was this, and I want to apologize for that.
And that's great language. I know she gave us great language in that, even in our marriage, to be able to look like, oh, we co-created this relationship. How did I co-create this?
Yes.
And that to me is a really healing thing, because then I can sit and own my side of the road. And that is a very matter of fact, reflective posture of just like, oh, what's the role that I played in co-creating this?
Yes.
And that's a healing thing, because there's an aspect of there's growth and development that I get to take away. And then I also, as I get to separate that out, instead of just either they're wrong or I'm wrong type deal, I also get to allow their side of the road. I get to look at their side of the road and be like, that is their side of the road. This is mine. This is theirs. This is helpful to delineate and get clarity on. So yeah, I think that that's very key in these processes.
Yeah, I think there's never been a relationship that ended where I didn't think I want to learn and grow in my own self. And that is one of the gifts we can extract from loss, is what did I do? And then taking ownership, like in both friendships that I'm talking about, I took ownership for things.
Yeah.
And maybe not how the friendship ended. Maybe that was on their terms, but maybe I could see like, here are the places that my pain showed up before we got to that point.
Yeah.
Here are the things that I did that created the culture that helped co-create our friendship culture. And both of those conversations were really good for me. Like, I don't know that it was good for them, but I felt so empowered by taking ownership for what I had the power over.
Yeah.
And for saying like, if there's things you want to bring up, I'm open to talking through that. The ability to take ownership for my side without taking blame, without deciding everything was my fault.
Yeah. I had this thought that's a little bit off track, but for years, because in this conversation, we're talking about getting rid of the hero and the villain, right?
Yeah.
And I would go to a lot of judgmental vilification of people. Like, I go down the road of like, they're a dirtbag human. Here's what they did, and they're a dirtbag. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to be around a dirtbag.
Oh, we do this all the time. When you see girl talk, like a guy breaks up with a girl and all of them are like, he's the worst. He's a narcissist. He's a player. He is so toxic. Everything about him is wrong.
Yep. And what I did and what we do as human beings is we dehumanize. Mm-hmm. We eradicate the beauty of someone else's humanity that is mixed in with the messiness.
Yeah.
Right. And that's something that I really want to highlight because it's very easy for us to dehumanize people in order, you talked about it's either them or me, that distance between us and pain, trying to create that. But I think that that's something to reflect on. Am I needing to dehumanize this person in order to process my pain?
Yeah.
Because if I am, that hit me really hard. Like, I don't want to dehumanize people.
Well, and if you judge them, you will have to judge yourself by that same noose.
Same standard. Mm-hmm. I'll hang myself. If I hang them by it,
then
I'm
somewhere
play hangman with myself at some point inside of it.
Judgment always works that way. Whatever I'm pointing my finger at you for will eventually get pointed at me right back. And so one of the things that I do, I consciously try to remember they have both messy parts and pain and self-protection. Honestly, I think most of the most messy parts of humans is when their self-protection is out.
Yeah.
Which means they feel threat and they're trying to protect themselves. Most of the times when people hurt me, that's what's going on. Most of the time when I hurt people, that's what's going on for me. I'm in self-protection. I'm concerned or have fear or anxiety, and it has been compensated by a wall or by a tone of voice or whatever that is. And so I look at, I'm both messy and loving.
Yeah.
I have both intention. I have the intention to love well, and I have the intention to protect myself. Mm-hmm. Those are at war within me all the time. You have good intentions. And you have intentions to protect yourself. And those are at war within you. And so when I'm looking at how dynamics happen, how do two people who love each other end up fighting or divorcing or blowing up or having a huge loss? Like, how does that happen? It's because there is a part of each of them. And I hate when we villainize so we forget, no, there is a part of that person that loved me.
Yeah.
They weren't all evil towards me. They weren't all trying to reject me. Like, maybe a part of them, when they went into self-protection, rejected me. But there was a part of them that genuinely cared for me.
Yeah.
And I need to remember. So I try to hold them with both and me with both. I brought love and I brought my issues. They brought love and they brought their issues. And that is a lot to mix together. And so I don't have to feel like one of us is good or bad. I can feel like both of us played a role.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is, I'm so sorry. Let me just think through this.
It's okay.
For a second.
I have a thought.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. That's on another note. In this pain that we create inside of this, or we experience inside of it, it's very easy to create vows.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And that's something. Now, what a vow looks like is, I'm never going to do relationships again.
I'll never trust again.
That type of I'm never. For instance, I can never trust men.
Yeah.
I can never trust women.
Yeah.
I can never trust people from this age group.
Totally.
I will never give myself away vulnerably in that way.
I will never let someone see into my inner world again. I will never believe that somebody wants to help meet my needs. I'll never
allow myself to look like a fool again. Just things like that. These vows are these self-protective behaviors that actually end up skewing the course of our future and creating more devastation because they're not protecting us. The idea of a vow in the midst of our pain is I'm going to create a vow so that I will be protected.
Yes.
But they don't actually protect. They perpetuate further
keep us
loss.
In prison, and they magnetize us towards the thing we're making a vow against.
Until we reconcile it. And so I think that that's something to really keep in the back of your head if you've gone through something like, what are the vows that I've made inside of myself when I've been in situations where I've experienced pain or I've created pain?
Well, and this is where we teach on in LFA, we teach on dirty pain versus clean pain. And so clean pain is like loss. The loss of a relationship is sad. Dirty pain is all the meaning we assign to that loss, the resistance, the frustration, and the vows we make, all of that, the resistance. But like when I was thinking about why it feels easier to process loss now for me.
Yeah.
And it's because I don't assign meaning.
Yes.
I don't assign that this means everybody in the world is out to get me, or that this means I can never trust people, or that this means I need to be hyper vigilant to make sure I catch all of the red flags, or all of those things end up being so chaotic.
Yeah.
I have one more thought. One of the best things about being a life consultant is that we've been involved in thousands of situations.
Yeah.
Thousands of conflicts with people. We've mediated hundreds of relationship dynamics with people. And the number one thing that happens is each person clearly believes that their perspective of the story that happened is fully accurate, and that the other person clearly knows what they think happened. I just had this happen with a friend recently where I felt like I so clearly communicated my feelings about this. I am sure that you understand me.
Yeah.
And they had no idea, even though I felt so clear. And I was like, I did it so well, but their perception of what I meant and what that did. And so we left I thought for sure we have the same story that happened between us. That is not what they were experiencing. And so much of our relationship dynamics when things end is like we have so many misses. Like
misunderstandings.
I think they were just being hardened towards me, but they thought that I was being hardened towards them. And there's so many layers of miscommunications in almost every relationship end that I have now held that like, oh, there must be a lot of miscommunications going on. Not that and we always want to assign that we for sure know what they meant.
Yeah, that's part of like humility is being able to be like, hey, I don't actually know the full story here.
I don't know everything they were thinking, what they were feeling.
I have some observations, things that felt true to me, things that were real to my experience.
Yes. And
there's a good chance that we both are littered with a lot of misunderstandings and we're both lacking clarity on some things.
Yeah. Like I had a conversation with a friend where it sounded to me like they were ending the friendship. And so that caused me pain. I felt really sad about that in the conversation. They didn't mean that at all. That's not even what they meant. So I was like, I still need you to validate my experience of that. Even though you didn't mean that, like that really was still painful for me.
Yeah.
But then I also wanted to validate that what they meant also made sense. So that's what I'm saying. People can come across so different than what they're meaning from the inside.
Well, I had one person, an individual where I said, hey, the level of what you did here, like I need to see you take ownership and clean this up.
Yeah.
And we kept having conversations about ownership and the need for ownership. And I was pretty sure that I kept highlighting what ownership looked like.
Yeah. And what did that mean to you? Like
that meant like figuring out how I got to this
going
place.
To counseling, understanding the why
of what's going on, being able to articulate probably how you affected multiple other people inside of this situation.
Yeah.
Just having understanding.
Yeah. So having empathy for what happened.
And
being able to find out why they did the things they did.
And to figure out a trajectory of like, what am I going to do?
How do I not do
this again and repair?
Yeah.
Participate in repairs, stuff like that. And in the immensity of their shame, this was after quite a while of discussions. They're like, I don't know what you want me to do. I'm taking all the ownership I can. I hate myself as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what?
Mm-hmm.
And they kept repeating like, yes, I am disgusted with myself.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what else you want me to do. And I was like, I never wanted you to be disgusted with yourself.
Totally.
That was never a word that once came out of my mouth. You have a perspective of ownership. Even though I've described what ownership is, you're not hearing it over and over again.
Like, I don't want you to hate yourself.
Yeah. You have a view, a lens, a definition of ownership that is shame and self-hatred.
Yeah. And that's not what you were meaning.
And so they went on a whole excursion thinking I was demanding self-hatred out of them. And I was like, that is bananas. That's the last thing I want someone to feel, because that does not help them get freedom and healing.
Totally. But when people are triggered, we're not perceiving each other. Like, as soon as we feel triggered, our brain goes to assuming threat through everything. And so our brains actually are not interpreting in a realistic way once they're in threat in a relationship.
Oh, when your brain is in threat in a relationship, someone can lay out verbatim exact clarity on something, and it goes right over the top of your head, and you're like, nope.
Because all you hear is the one threat in the first sentence they said,
and
you missed it.
Want, and then you grab what you want, want.
Well, you don't grab what you want. Your brain grabs what it's afraid of.
That's what I mean.
You're not consciously choosing.
Sure, that's what I mean by it.
But so the point is, we can have so much compassion anytime there's a relationship that ends. We can know that both parties probably feel misunderstood. Both parties probably feel pain from what they think the other person wants from them.
Yeah.
Both people can assume negative things about the other people.
Yes.
Because we go into threat. And so when we're in threat, we assume the worst case scenario about the people around us.
Their thoughts, their actions, their responses. Yep.
Yes. And so this conversation is meant to, let's validate how tragic it is when something that you thought was going to be a forever relationship ends.
Yeah.
It's so tragic. It's so painful. And let's learn how to accept that this is one of the things in life and process it where we can deeply validate our pain. I can say, from what I know about how they communicated, it felt like they had no compassion on me. It felt like they never empathized with me. It felt like they couldn't see that I just went through something very traumatizing.
Yeah.
That feels horrible. And maybe there's more than I can understand from what was going on.
Yeah. I as we wrap this up, did you have any thoughts on processing past relationships to help enjoy?
Yeah, I think like the more that I have learned, like the more I've processed and come to peace with the things that have ended for me, the less I'm living in the anxiety of those. Like now that I feel like I've come to peace, like it's okay if relationships change. It's okay if, and one thing we didn't talk through is like sometimes people grow and the people around them don't grow, and the tension there becomes very hard to handle, and relationships can break there. I know that there's a relationship that we have that's a part where like, if you don't grow to stop hurting us in this way, then this relationship is going to have to change.
Yeah.
And we're growing. That doesn't mean that we are outgrowing them. It just means we're moving a direction. And I don't know if they're moving that direction too. And sometimes those relationships, I just wanted to validate that kind of transition too.
Yeah.
But the less I've seen the past as you ruined my life, or like now I can see that relationship with the person I grew up having that really connection, and then it ended, the first relationship I talked about. I have so much peace about it that it makes me know if I had another 3-year season with somebody that loved me the way they did, I would want it, even if it was going to end, and even if it was going to end messy, because the gift I gained from it was so great. And so as I process past relationships, it's enabled me to realize I just want present. Like I'm aware of now when I'm friends, I'm like, you may not be my forever person. I've changed my internal dialogue because I used to be like, we'll be friends forever. I'm going to visualize like us doing vacations together. I'm going to visualize our whole lives, And now I'm like, I don't know how long I'll be friends with you, but I'm really enjoying the friendship moment that I have with you right now.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying the ways you're meeting my needs right now. I'm really enjoying the way you see me right now.
Yeah. I think a couple last things. There might be relationships that people have where currently they're broken and the person on the other side will not relent. Mm-hmm. The poking, the aggression, like the bitterness, the resentment, whatever. And that is a hard thing. That's a hard thing to be able to process because you're having to continually forgive. You're having to continually process grief. There's navigating boundaries and stuff like that. And that's something that some of the conversations that we're having here, we're talking about relational repair and dealing with these things in our hearts over the course of years.
Yes.
This isn't like this happens tomorrow.
Yes.
The process the beginning of that might start now. Mm-hmm. I say yes into a process in this moment, but I might not reconcile this for the next 5 years of my life fully. And I keep saying yes to the journey of repair inside of myself and what I can control and what I manage. So that's one thought. Mm-hmm. The other thought is that like, I think it's a good time, like listening to this episode, as you've listened to this, taking the time to reflect and say like, hey, where have I been in both situations? Because it's going to be very easy for probably most people
to remember the people who've hurt them the most.
Hurt us the most. But doing a kind of sweeping through our history,
an
inventory check of our history, and ask myself, because this is one thing we do in our school in Life Consulting Masterclass. At the end of every one of our teaching classes, we have people do ownership. And ownership is reflecting like, what did I hear in today's meeting that I can take ownership for and go, oh, I do that. Oh, I've done that. Oh, I need to grow in that. And I think that as you listen to this, like, where have I participated in hurting other people in relationship that I haven't cleaned up my side of the road and taking care of that? I think that that's very humble. It's a humbling experience to do, and it's an empowering experience to do on that again. So I think that that's a great piece of homework walking away from this episode.
And I want to be clear, we'll do an episode on what to do with relationships that are hard that you're currently in and boundaries.
Right.
This is about relationships that have ended.
They have ended. They're past, and you're having to look at them and process them. So.
And I just want to say, like, we've both had redemption from past people coming and having, and it doesn't mean you have to become best friends afterwards again, but being able to have full circle moments. So if there's somebody that you have wronged or that you just stopped talking to, and maybe it was just because you got overwhelmed in life. Maybe it was because you were just going through too much trauma and you couldn't respond to people anymore. Whatever your reason is, this is a great time to reach out.
Great. All right. Hey, I'm done. I need food. I'm going to go put food in my belly.
Yeah.
I'm going to eat the food in my belly. Anything else you have to say?
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye for now.